What happens when a Hollywood legend walks into a studio expecting a casual interview and ends up facing one of the most politically charged panels on television? Kurt Russell stepped onto The View to talk about his latest film, The Hateful Eight. But what started as a simple promotional appearance quickly turned into a heated debate on gun control. And trust me, what happened next left Whoopi Goldberg and her co-hosts scrambling to regain control of the conversation. With grace, wit, and a dose of history, Kurt delivered a calm but crushing response to their arguments, reminding everyone why the Second Amendment is as relevant today as ever. The interview began as a typical segment. Kurt Russell, Hollywood icon, was there to discuss The Hateful Eight, a film set in the tense post-Civil War era. But this was The View, and things rarely stay on topic. Whoopi Goldberg, ever the provocateur, brought up comments Kurt had made during a prior interview. Recently, you made headlines for saying gun control laws wouldn't deter terrorists. Could you explain that for us? Whoopi asked, her tone suggesting she thought she had him cornered. But Kurt wasn't rattled. Instead, he leaned back, smiled, and began to calmly dismantle their arguments. Kurt started by addressing the context of his original comment. You know, these conversations can get derailed because people bring their own agendas. But my point is simple. Gun control won't stop people with bad intentions. History has proven that time and again. He went on to explain the deeper issue at hand. There's a reason the Founding Fathers gave us the Second Amendment. It wasn't about hunting or sportsmanship. It was about ensuring that people have the right to protect themselves, not just from criminals, but also from their own government. You could see the panel bracing themselves. Kurt wasn't here to back down, and his calm delivery only made his points hit harder. Joy Behar jumped in, attempting to reframe the conversation. Most people aren't against the Second Amendment itself. It's about the excesses. Surely you can agree we need to control those?
Recently you made some headlines for saying that you felt gun control laws wouldn't deter terrorists. Explain to folks.
Well, you know, these are these things where, first of all, I was in a situation, we do what we call the dog and pony.
Right.
We're out doing the dog and pony selling a picture. And you get sometimes you get what you feel is slightly ambushed by somebody who's really got an agenda. And that's sort of, I think, that's my opinion of what happened to me the other day.
Kurt didn't miss a beat. The problem isn't the Second Amendment. It's how we've lost sight of its purpose. People are too quick to blame the tool rather than addressing the root causes of violence. We can't fix anything by ignoring history. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the panel's growing frustration. Even Sonny Hostin, usually quick with a rebuttal, seemed at a loss for words. Kurt then brought the discussion back to its historical roots, referencing the Civil War. If the Second Amendment hadn't existed, many people wouldn't have had the opportunity to stand up for their rights during that time. It's a safeguard, not just a privilege. Whoopi tried to interject, but Kurt continued. Freedom isn't free, and it certainly isn't guaranteed. The Second Amendment is about ensuring that freedom survives for future generations. It's not just about self-defense. It's about protecting our way of life. The room grew quiet. Even the audience, often quick to cheer the hosts, seemed captivated by Kurt's logic.
The last thing I like to watch is entertainers or actors get political. It's just something I can't stand watching. So having said that, no, I was kind of asked to put it in context somehow with this movie. Mm-hmm. You know, my personal feeling is that there's a big difference between Fantasyland and reality.
Kurt didn't stop there. He shifted the conversation to the emotional arguments often used in gun control debates. Every time there's a tragedy, people rush to blame guns. I get it. Fear is powerful. But we need to think rationally. Taking away rights won't solve the problem. It only creates more division. His words struck a chord. It wasn't just about defending the Second Amendment. It was about addressing the fear and misinformation surrounding it.
Fantasyland is what we do. You're either writing something, writing a song, writing a book, doing a movie, doing a television show. That's Fantasyland. Mm-hmm. And that's where that stuff belongs. In reality, when we're dealing with things like terrorism and whatnot, we're all going to have different opinions on how to do it, and how to deal with it. Yeah. Mine happens to be that I think there's a very strong reason Founding Fathers had for the Second Amendment, and that is that no government ever hasn't had to fight its own people, and its own people hasn't had to fight its own government. We had our Civil War. If that Second Amendment hadn't been there, those people would not have had the opportunity to do what they considered was defending their life, their way, their style of living. So I agree with that. I think that's an important part of our existence, and it's basically that simple.
I think that people more object to the excesses of the Second Amendment, not the Second Amendment. It's these
And that's where the debate comes in. I think it's too bad that the debate can't remain kind of civil too, and that's hard to do. It's one of those things that it's like I talked about. Sometimes talking about terrorism. Whatever we do, and we all have our opinion on that too. Whatever we do, we're a little late for the people who've died. And if you know somebody, or you know a child that was maimed in that situation, I got a strong feeling that one's opinion has a tendency to change that.
Yeah.
So I just leave it open for interpretation by all different people, and just say we're all in this together, and we're going to hear his.
Kurt's approach echoed another iconic moment in political debates. Ben Shapiro's takedown of Piers Morgan on CNN. Shapiro famously said, "The Second Amendment isn't about hunting or personal protection. It's about resisting tyranny. History is full of examples where disarming the populace led to oppression."
I'd really like to hear your policy prescriptions for what we should do about guns. Because you say that you respect the Second Amendment, and, I brought this here for you so that you can read it. It's the Constitution. And I would really like for you to explain to me what you would do about guns that would have prevented what happened in Sandy Hook. If you want to do what you did in the UK, right, which is ban virtually all guns, that is at least a fair argument. And we can have a discussion about whether that's something that we ought to do or not. The basis for the Second Amendment is not really about self-defense, and it's not about hunting. It is about resistance to government tyranny. That's what the founders said, and that's what the right believes in this country.
Which tyranny are you fearing yourself?
I fear the possibility of a tyranny rising in this country in the next 50 to 100 years. Let me tell you something, Piers. The fact that my grandparents and great-grandparents in Europe didn't fear that is why they are now ashes in Europe. So this kind of leftist revisionist history, where there's never any fear of democracy going usurpacious or tyrannical, is just that.
Like Shapiro, Kurt reminded the panel that the right to bear arms is about ensuring that no government becomes too powerful. As the conversation continued, Whoopi made one final attempt to regain control. "But what about all the violence? Don't we have a responsibility to do something?" Kurt's response was measured but firm. "Of course we have a responsibility. But that responsibility isn't about taking rights away. It's about addressing the root causes of violence. Guns aren't the problem. People are." His words were a stark reminder of the complexity of the issue, cutting through the emotional rhetoric often seen in such debates. By the end of the segment, it was clear that Kurt Russell had done more than hold his own. He had schooled the view on the importance of the Second Amendment, using history, logic, and calm reasoning to make his case. And while the hosts may not have admitted it, the silence in the room spoke volumes. This wasn't just another celebrity interview. It was a powerful reminder of why the Second Amendment exists and why it must be protected. So, what do you think? Did Kurt Russell hit the mark, or do you side with the view on this one? Let us know in the comments below.